Welcome to Behind the Muscle podcast. Today's guest is an IFBB Pro bodybuilder. Today's guest is Quinton Eriya. Quinton, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, thank you for having me, Quentin.
For sure, man. So yeah, that is kind of cool. Where we both have the same name and spell it the same and everything. So kind of a unique connection there. So Quinton, I just want to ask you the first question I like to ask all my guests. Who are a few of your favorite bodybuilders of all time?
Definitely Ronnie Coleman, Dexter Jackson. Who else? Well, I'd say Ronnie Coleman and Dexter Jackson. I mean, there's so many. I'm a fan of so many, but I just want to leave it at those two because it's not just about their physique, but also their personality. Yeah, because there's a lot of incredible physiques that I really am inspired by, but maybe the personality doesn't inspire me as much. So those two, 100% bang on, obsessed.
Very cool, man. So the second question I like to ask everybody on the podcast, Quinton, at what age did you start lifting weights? And then why did you start lifting weights at that age?
I think I was 12. So I started because, I wanted better abs. I wanted arms, shoulders and arms and stuff. I also wanted to hit harder. I liked to fight back then. But yeah, I didn't start lifting and then keep going. I stopped because I started building a good amount of muscle, and it wasn't cool at the time. My peers were afraid of me. They thought it was nasty. So I'm all right. And I stopped working out. And then I picked it back up when I turned 17, 18.
Okay. Awesome, man. So I like to use that question just to kind of transition into talking about your upbringing, your childhood a little bit. So I've listened to a few of your other interviews on different podcasts, and I don't know if I've really heard a whole lot about your backstory in terms of your childhood. So I am really looking forward to kind of getting into that, Quinton. So talk about where you grew up, talk about maybe a little bit about your parents and what those younger years look like for you up to about high school, and then we'll transition from there.
So I grew up in a place in Canada called Ontario. The city's called Markham. So, Markham's always going to be in my heart. I love that place. I had a good upbringing. I got a good family, great parents, always been supportive. When I was real young, they had me in sports, basketball, football, track and field. My brother played hockey. I didn't mess with hockey though. So, we had a lot of opportunities growing up. We'll go to church every Sunday. So I feel like my parents, they're such good-hearted, pure people. And honestly, to this day, and I tell them, they are my idols. They inspire me, in just who they are as people, man. I strive to be a good person, but it doesn't matter how good I might think I am. I don't think that I'm as genuine or as pure, as good as they are, they're just, I don't know, almost like they're angels. So I'm definitely grateful. I have 3 brothers, 2 that are close in age, 1 that's much older. So we all played sport. Well, the older one didn't really, but the 3 of us are close in age. We all played sports. I usually played on the same team as my younger brother, Sheldon. We're a year apart. So we were usually on the same team. So it was stressful, annoying sometimes. It's your brother, you see him all the time. It's competitive because if he outperforms me, I look like a punk because I'm older, right? So it was a good time, man, good childhood.
Excellent. So you mentioned earlier when you kind of started lifting weights and stuff, when you were in that discussion, you said something about fighting. What was that all about? What was that all about?
Well, my parents wouldn't put me into any sort of organized fighting because I was already pretty violent, but it wasn't it's not like I was just beating people up. I loved wrestling, so me and my brothers would fight every day, multiple times a day. We'd wrestle. Of course, we'd actually fight. And I don't know, I loved it. I loved the challenge of I'm oh shoot, he beat me today. I'm I better get him back tomorrow. And also, I just felt not that I never really had any threats because I grew up in a good area, but I always wanted to make sure that I was strong, and I was able to protect myself. And I don't know, like you see videos of people getting their ass kicked online, or you see your friend get beat up. It's like, I don't want that to happen to me. So I'm going to do what I can to make sure it never happens.
Makes sense, man. So you said your parents are your idols. What is it, Quentin, that you feel like they really instilled in you? And was there maybe like a saying or a quote or just some words that they always said to you and your siblings when you were growing up that kind of still you hold on to? Or just talk a little bit more about their influence, please.
I think there's a lot of random things, not random, but a lot of little gems they threw at me. I think the first one that comes to mind is life isn't fair. You know, let's say I got in trouble for something. I'm like, oh, well, my brother did this and he wasn't in trouble. Like, well, I'm like, that's not fair. Like, life isn't fair. And, you know, it's annoying because obviously you want what you want at that given moment, but it's funny because it's such a vague statement, but it's true, you know, with everything happening in the world this past year, regardless of how you or that person might view it, like it sucks, you know what I mean? And it's not that I think it's unfair, but it's just like, it's out of your control and it's definitely inconvenient. And you just got to understand, like, life isn't meant to go your way. So you just got to roll with it.
Very cool, man. So you get to high school. What are you thinking about what you wanted to do once you graduated high school? And then what did that kind of take form? Did you actually start pursuing what you wanted to do once you were thinking about that stuff in high school? Or did life kind of take you in a other direction once you graduated from high school?
You know, in high school, I was very lost. You know, my parents split up right as I entered high school. And, you know, the structure that I had living in a two-parent household was very important, and it was really good for my childhood. Now, for me being a teenager, I started because obviously with my parents split, I had so much time to myself. So I wouldn't do homework, or I would pretend to do it, and I would just hang out with friends, or, you know, like fry some burgers at home. Like I wasn't doing anything crazy, but I wasn't doing much. And I also didn't really believe in myself, you know, at that point in my life. I think every sport, like, so I was really good at football, but although I was good, I didn't have the passion, the love for it. So some days I'd show up and I would just play shit because I just didn't feel like it. In basketball, you know, sometimes I didn't always have the confidence, but I loved basketball. But I remember the theme of my life at that point was I never stuck through with anything, like, you know, and my dad kind of highlighted it once, like, yo, he didn't call me a quitter, but I think in a way I was, you know, if I didn't want to do something, I'd just stop. And I never really had something that I was like passionate about. So I didn't really have much confidence. I didn't really believe in myself. I didn't think I was smart. And, you know, I just sticked around and got through school because it's not hard to not fail. But, you know, I was afraid that if I tried hard and I didn't get the result that I wanted, that would validate that I'm not smart. That would validate that I'm stupid. So I just never tried. So, you know, I didn't realize it. And I definitely think that, you know, just the way life happened, the way circumstances take place, I think that, you know, I definitely needed, I'm a bit more needy. As a kid, I was definitely more, you know, I needed that, like, you know, like somebody kind of on me to make sure. I needed that guidance. And during those high school years, I didn't really have that. And also I was a high schooler, so I was very deviant towards my parents, you know? So I don't, maybe they probably didn't have the opportunity to support me the way they wanted to because I was just a mess. So I remembered when I got into weightlifting around the time I was 17, it was like the last semester of school because basketball season just finished and I needed to do something to stay in shape. So I started using my brother's gym pass because I was broke. I didn't have no money. And I was using his tag to get in the gym. So thank you, Damon, for that. And he would go in the morning, I'd go at night. And we looked the same at the time. So people wouldn't notice. Sometimes with the front desk, people would look like, is that the? And I just walked too fast, right? But it's funny because for the first time in my life, I remember after a couple months of, exercising, one of the girls, and this was like a really smart girl, like honor roll student. So I respected her opinion a lot. She was like part of student government and all that stuff. And she told me, she said something about like my work ethic. She's like, you have an incredible work ethic, or a very high work ethic. Like, good for you. I'm proud of you. And I was like, I had an epiphany, man. Like I had an epiphany. I'm like, so I can do this. Like because bodybuilding and seeing results, I mean, it's very vain kind of, because it's about something that's superficial. But for me, the best part about bodybuilding is what I gain within. And for me, that was when I realized that I was capable just like everybody else. And I started to gain confidence. And any endeavor that I had for the rest of my life from that point onwards, I knew that I could do it, and I just always believe in myself. I mean, obviously, there's doubts in life, but for the most part, after that experience, I knew that there's nothing anybody could do that I can't. So that was definitely a really good, I'm glad she said that to me.
That's beautiful, man. I love that. We all at different points in life need somebody or something to speak into our life, right? Q. So now once you graduated high school, what happened? What path did you start taking?
So I was still like a little confused about what I wanted to do. So I got a job at American Eagle. I was, selling clothes, and part-time, not making a lot of money, living at home, stressing my mom out at my mom's house. And I was just training. I was training. My priority, and the funny thing is, I would tell people, I'm bodybuilding, because essentially training to manipulate your physique is the act of bodybuilding. That's the very essence of bodybuilding. But I wasn't trying to be a pro bodybuilder. I wanted to stay natural forever. And also at that point, it was still like, I was still so premature, and it still seemed so far out of reach. But I was just training because I enjoyed training. I enjoyed the results. Again, like the vain component of it, the superficial side of it, I enjoyed, I liked having abs, or, being a little cut in certain areas. The girls liked it and stuff. And I just kept doing it. And honestly, man, it's crazy because I wasn't expecting it to turn into something, but it did. Eventually, people would come up to me all the time at the gym when I was like 19, 20, because, that's the thing. I didn't go to school or anything because I didn't know what to do. So I'm like, let me just take my time. And I got really good results in the gym that year. And people would tell me, do you compete? You should compete, man. You should do this category. You should do that. So after hearing that from so many people at different gyms you go to, I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna do it, and yeah.
Okay, so why don't we let's jump into your first competition, and then just talk about your competition history up to the point when you earned your IFBB Pro card, Quentin.
So my first competition was 2015, end of 2015. King Kong Classic Naturals. Shout out to Chris Wong, an incredibly run show. They've been having it every year. I think they even managed to have it last year with the whole virus thing. But incredible show. Had such a great experience. When I did it, again, I didn't know how to pose. I was so green. I still didn't know much about bodybuilding. Even when I turned pro, I still didn't really understand the sport. It was a bit afterwards when I started to really understand, okay, this is what it takes to be great, because so my first show was November 2015, and I turned pro 2017 in May. So there was the regional show, and then I only did juniors. So you can't turn pro if you're a junior. So the way that happened, I wanted that pro card ASAP, but there was 3 levels. There was regional and provincial, then nationals. So the provincial show was in August 2016. So there was a national show that year, but it was in June. So I couldn't qualify for that, right? So I'm like, all right, whatever. So before the August show, I competed at another regional show to do men's, so that I could qualify to win a pro card if it happened, right? But I didn't think I would, because there were some good guys. I was natural, of course. So I was natural. I was competing in the natural federation. So at the provincials, I did really good. I won my class. Yeah, my posing was really bad and could have been tighter, but so I didn't win the overall, but I was so proud of myself. I remember I cried that night, and that's when I started to see, I'm like, yo, I actually have potential. I could actually do something with this. So we had 8 or 9 months till the nationals. Don't quote me on that, but from August to May, pretty much. So then I hired a coach, and I worked with the coach for pretty much every show except my first one. So I hired a coach, and we got to work from like December to May. So like about a 20-week prep. Jason Green, that's his name, really good coach. And yeah, we got it done. And honestly, the funny thing, I don't think he knows this, but I was like playing basketball during the prep. I was boxing because I wasn't like I enjoyed bodybuilding. I enjoyed changing my physique, but I didn't understand that you gotta do this and just this alone, right? But obviously, sports, that's gonna, like, it's cardio, it's gonna keep you fit. Yeah, so my activity level was high, and yeah, we made it happen. I didn't even like how I looked at that show. I thought I was off, too much of a carb up. So I was like, that show is just more so about having fun with my friends, and yeah, I ended up winning.
Now, was this the Canadian Nationals then when you earned your IFBB Pro card, or a different competition?
Yeah, so it was called, so the way it was before was a little different. Like right now in Canada, it's called the Canadian Physique Alliance. Before, the CPA was the OPA, Ontario Physique Association, and they were like a subsidiary of a bigger company, which was called the CBBF, Canadian Bodybuilding Federation. So the CBBF was responsible for the national shows and handing out the pro cards. So their event for the natural nationals was called the International Event World Qualifier. I know, complicated name, but that was the natural national, but it's not called Canadian Nationals. The Canadian Nationals was the open show. So if you were to Google it, you wouldn't find it. But also, it's a natural show. You can't really, there's almost no coverage on that stuff.
But you did, at that competition, when you won, you received your IFBB Pro card then?
So the weird thing about it was they didn't give me the pro card. They're like, okay, you've earned pro status, but you won't get it until the world events are done. So pretty much it was like the International Event World Qualifier. So it qualifies you to compete in the world event. So I won the junior overall and I won the men's overall. So I was qualified to compete in Romania for the under 23 bodybuilding and in Spain for open. So I did it. I competed at those shows because I wasn't going to have my pro card. I wasn't going to compete either. Like, even if I had my pro card, I was natural. I didn't look like a pro. So I did those shows and it was a great experience. I got to go to Romania. That was my first time leaving North America. So I got to go to Spain. I was in Romania and yeah, I competed. My parents came. My dad was there the whole time with me. So both Spain and Romania. My mom, she flew to Romania. So, and my aunt from the UK flew to Spain to see me for that show. So, my family is just, they crazy, they're about that life.
That's awesome though, man, to have that love and support, in your corner, Quentin. So, now I want to ask you, because I mean, it didn't take you, relatively speaking, very long to turn pro. I mean, you kind of said even during the whole process, like you didn't really even understand fully what was going on, or didn't really understand fully bodybuilding. You're playing basketball and just kind of doing things here and there. So when did it really hit you, Quentin, that, hey, like, if I want to continue this bodybuilding thing and maybe make a career of it and really be a professional, that I've got to go all in? What was kind of that point where you kind of determine that in your mind and your heart?
In 2018, at some point, I started to ponder the thought of, just going all the way and seeing what I do. At first I was thinking about doing classic, but I'm like, you know what? Because when you're small and like, I just mean it like, in comparison to what pro athletes look like. So I was small, right? Uh, Everything looks so out of reach, and I'm like, listen, let me just see what happens. And initially I'm like, well, probably gain enough muscle to do classic, right? We gained a lot of muscle. So, we decided open was probably the best fit. But right, I met Dorian. We changed like around the time that I did the world events, like that was like November 2017. Dorian saw like my page from like a bodybuilding page, reposted me, Bodybuilders Without Borders, I think, and he like said something. He gave me advice on posing, and he complimented me. And this was like the biggest guy I've ever seen, or like he was gigantic. So the way it works, and this is what I didn't like when I was natural. A lot of open bodybuilders, like guys that are on gear, they look like almost look past you, like you don't matter because, and I got a lot of like cold shoulders from people wouldn't really show me love. So it just shows that Dorian, he never had that ego. And I thought it was cool. I didn't know who he was, but I'm like, wow, this guy seems like he knows what he's doing. And I ran into him and Antoine the next year, and they gave me the opportunity, like, man, like we would like to help you, and I'm like, all right, because I just started like on my own at that point. I was just going to see where things go, but I'm like, okay, let's see what happens, and it's happening.
Yeah, it definitely is, man. So talk about your pro debut. What year was it? What competition was it? Just talk about that experience of stepping on a IFBB Pro stage.
My pro debut was 2019 Toronto Pro. So after a year working with Dorian, incredible feeling. It was exciting, thrilling. Yeah, I loved it. Absolutely loved it. Had so much fun up there. Yeah, it was like literally perfect. Couldn't have been better. Also, it's at home, so you get a bit of love when you get on stage. Not that I need to hear people cheer. I don't really care. Yeah, when I'm on stage, I'm not really listening to, like, I can't really hear people that much, right? But it was definitely cool. And I don't know, I just had such positive energy. So I placed top 5 there. And yeah, placed top 5. Great experience. And I'm excited that I get to compete there again next week.
Yeah, man, I want to talk about that here in a minute. But before we do, so you right out of high school, you said you were working for American Eagle. At what point did you stop working there? And then did you kind of just fully go into, making a living from bodybuilding, or what were you doing to kind of pay the bills up to the point that you kind of were a pro bodybuilder and were able to make money from bodybuilding or training, coaching, what have you?
So for most of that period, I lived at home, like, or with one of my parents. So then I think I moved back in with my dad, and then I got a job at a Good Life close to my dad's house. So I was just working there for a bit. I switched around to a couple different Good Lives, which is like a commercial gym here in Canada. Where are you from?
I'm from Iowa in the United States.
Okay, right on. So so it's just a commercial gym. So we like, I wasn't making a living. Like, I wasn't able to like really do this until like 2 years ago, maybe, when I got my first contract from Redcon. That really helped, and I was able to, put things to the side and just focus on my career. However, these days I like to work. I have like an online coaching business. I have clients that I train in person. So even if I am okay and I have sponsors, like I don't want to rely on that, because at the end of the day with COVID, like, you could lose money from sponsors. Like, if the company's not doing well, they can't pay the athletes as much, right? So you can lose stuff, and it's like nothing's really guaranteed. So I feel like even if you're making bank from sponsors, you still got to do something on your own to help propel yourself financially and just secure your future.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Those are wise words. So you said you brought up Redcon. They were your first sponsor then?
Yeah, they were my first supplement sponsor. Yeah.
So talk about that, because obviously you're with Team HD now, and I want to talk about them here in a minute. But just talk about that opportunity, Quentin. I mean, you know, there's so many because of social media, right? Especially like Instagram, you've got all these people that are like chasing after sponsorships and stuff like that. What does it mean to you when somebody like approaches you and says, hey, like, we believe in you. We want to, you know, help you in pursuing your dream. Like, what does that do for you in terms of your self-belief and confidence? And what was it like working for Redcon for the time that you did?
So for a kid that's like, well, for a young man that's like, you know, in a position with financials where you're like financially struggling and you get that kind of offer, it definitely, man, it meant the world to me. But at that time, I didn't have the following. I didn't know how to engage with my followers that well. So it was hard to, you know, convert it into sales. Um, Long story short, my agreement with Redcon actually ended when the COVID hit. They just pretty much, I don't know if I can say this or not, but they pretty much like cut a lot of people, or it's like, hey, we can't pay you for a bit, whatever. So I was like, all right. And so I just saw it as I probably wasn't like a huge asset for them, which is totally fine. It was a really good experience. And that opened the door for me to work with, you know, my good friends and housemates. So yeah, the door opened and I went inside, and now with HD Muscle. And the thing is, for me personally, as it comes to supplements, and I've been maturing and learning so much as I've been a part of this game. And for me, it's about the quality of the brand. You know, it's not about, there's companies, I'm sure, that like, you know, let's say you have a really good showing or you win a show, there's companies that are going to offer more money, right? But for me personally, I need to like, what's important is the quality of the product. What's important to me is the quality of product, the people behind the products. Like, I don't want to, like, let's say the roles were reversed and like I stopped working with HD Muscle and I had the chance to work with Redcon, I wouldn't do it. I probably just do things on my own, you know. But yeah, I just really don't, I don't see myself ever working with anybody else. And I think that when people switch from company to company, it ruins the integrity of what they sell, because it's like, oh, well, you said these were the best. You said that was the best. It's like, how do you convince people to buy? It's like, you're pretty much just buying it because you like me at that point. But I prefer for my followers to actually buy and support me because they see that, okay, this is important to him and he uses this and he stands by this. And I actually stand by the products. Man, like Dorian Noah, they put everything into these products, man. So not big margins of like return, in my opinion, for them, because they're so focused on making the product incredible, you know. So hats off to them.
100%, man. So you brought up kind of like engagement. You know, you're talking about maybe your following wasn't there with Redcon and the engagement and all that different stuff. And this is more for maybe somebody that's listening, right, Quentin? Because the reality is, social media is here. It's here to stay.
Mhm.
I think it can be a really great thing. It can be a negative thing. It kind of depends upon how you use it and utilize it, right? But for you, and this is, again, maybe for some of the listeners, just giving them some advice. What's your advice? What's your perspective on social media, Instagram specifically, and how do you use it to connect with your followers, to grow your brand, to promote, you know, those companies that are believing in you? Just chat about that for a couple minutes, if you don't mind, please.
So with all that stuff, you just have to find organic ways, well, in my opinion, to promote the products. I'm not one of those people that's going to do skits. It's not really my thing. I'm not somebody that's going to go outside of my comfort zone to promote stuff. Maybe that would get me more sales, but I'm a very chill individual, very relaxed dude. So I kind of like, hey, this is what I use, you know, check it out, or it's on discount, go check it out, use my code. You know, I keep it real simple. Like, but at the same time, if you're somebody that's not destroying sales, like, you have to understand that whatever sponsorship you have, you could lose it. You know, if you're not hitting certain numbers, a company might offer you something because they project that you can produce those projections. And if you don't, they're either going to drop you or the pay is going to drop. So that's kind of a part of the game, but it also works the other way too, where if you are performing very well, if you perform very well, you know, you could potentially see more financial gain. So it's all about like, I think with social media, with sponsors, it's easy to think, okay, like all I gotta do is post pictures. It seems very easy, but it's not that easy. You know, you really you have to find ways to captivate the audience, to get them to see value in the product. And if they don't see value, like if they don't see value in it, they ain't gonna buy it. Right. So it looks way easier than it actually is. However, as long as you're doing the bare minimum, and by bare minimum, I mean whatever's in your contract, like if it says 4 stories a week, 1 post a week, just make sure to do those. Make sure they're not shitty. Make sure they're like reasonable. And yeah.
Very cool, man. So I want to get back into competing a little bit before we talk about a few other things. Now, what competition did you compete in 2020? Because you did compete in 2020, right?
Yeah, I did the New York Pro in Tampa, and I feel like I shat the bed. Yeah, conditioning was off. And I was really disappointed in myself. I had gyno, and I thought it was like I had it before, but it went down when I went into my first year competing. Like it was there, but as I competed, as I got leaner, it went away. So this one, I thought that was going to happen. It didn't, but I wasn't going to pull out of the show because of that. But I really hated that look, hate those. Well, I don't not hate those pictures, but because, you know, looking back on it, it's just a reminder of what I went through and where I've been. And I already know, like, you can see it just sucked because when you're not in shape, you don't see the improvements. Right, it's hard to compare like the change in size because there's also like a huge film of water or fat in certain areas, so it's hard. So it looked like I just didn't improve. I just showed up off, and you know, I've been dealing with criticism for a year. You know, and I think people wrote me off. People stopped talking about me as like, you know, somebody that's an up and comer. And you know, you got these pages. There are some people in the sport that just bash, you know. And at the end of the day, yeah, I'm somebody that I could take criticism well. So it is what it is. And the excuse or the reason as to why it happened is not important. But the thing is, I know myself, and I know that I do everything that it takes, you know. So we had a different approach this year. And yeah, the result heading into Romania was much better. And this one for Toronto is going to be way better.
So you had the opportunity as an amateur or right after you turned pro to compete in Romania. So was it kind of cool to be back in Romania and be able to be an IFBB pro and have an awesome showing? What was that like just a few weeks ago?
It was cool. They didn't have like a proper audience because of the virus and stuff. Their case numbers are high right now, but there was a guy there and he spoke to me. He's like, "Hey, I was at the show in Bistrita. Bistrita is the other city that I competed in 2017. And there was another guy at the show that's like, hey, we competed together in Spain." And it's just like, holy fuck. So it's cool to like there were people there that I've been around or have seen me before. So it's cool. Like it just kind of adds to the storyline, you know. I chose Romania because I've been there before and I had a good experience there. So it was, yeah, honestly, it's an incredible experience.
Awesome, Quentin. So then you're a week out from your second Toronto Pro, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, why don't you just talk about maybe what you and Dorian are discussing in terms of maybe some things that you're gonna do a little bit different, or what's kind of the game plan as opposed to the game plan for Romania, or are you kind of just keeping things the same?
So what we did for Romania, we like ran me into the ground. Like I was like dead for like 4 weeks, no energy. If you go through my page, well, you follow me, right? So
Oh
you
yeah.
probably saw before I wasn't posting anything, right? I like the idea of like, you know, having some sort of suspense. But at the same time, like I had no energy to do anything. I just needed to execute, and I was just focused on execution. So it was bittersweet. I'd say more sweet than bitter, but like, listen, it doesn't matter what I gotta do. I'm gonna do it. because I genuinely enjoy this stuff. I enjoy the process. Even when I feel shit, I still, a part of me, crazy part of me still enjoys it. So we pushed really hard, a good amount of cardio, very low carbs, and we got in good shape. Now, the problem was leading into the show, it was very hard to fill out. Like even my upper body, there's no pop. So the problem is like, when you're flexing, there's no fibers showing, so it looks like you're soft or not conditioned up there. But it wasn't like I was not in shape, but it was just something that we kind of we both noticed. We're like, okay, so the night of the show I had some food, and then the next day I had some food and a couple treats that night too. And then I went in the gym the day before I left Romania, and I took some pictures. I shared them with Dorian. And the upper body was pushing, like it was really pushing. He's like, huh, interesting. So he's like, okay, so this 2.5 weeks, like since I got back, we've been eating more food, essentially, less cardio, less cutters and that stuff. And then now the cardio is back up a bit. The carbs are a little lower, but they're still much higher than what they were in Romania. And the funny thing is, because of like the carb up and the food from Romania, my metabolism is just firing. So I could eat more food and lose more weight than I was before. So it's kind of like the perfect storm, except I'm really hungry. Like I'm craving. Before that show, I wasn't craving nothing. I'm actually like thinking about food, looking at food pages now. So I got to deal with that. But the idea is to come in fuller. And yeah, we're just, right now I feel much fuller than before. The weight is I'm just 2 pounds up from what I was on stage. So there's not like a huge difference, but yeah, we're going to come in, we're sharpening up, and yeah, it's going to be a good one, man. It's going to be a good one.
So what's your mindset, Quentin, as you are going into a competition? Are you fully focused 100% on you? Do you kind of look at some of the other guys that you know are going to be competing? Where's your mind at in terms of your prep leading into a show? And then specifically for Toronto, like, do you have like, hey, I want to get first, I want to get top 3, I want to get top 5. What's that like as well?
I got to win Toronto. I got to win. There ain't nobody that worries me. Like even like going into Romania, I think Samson's an incredible bodybuilder. I think Rafael Brandel's an incredible bodybuilder. There's good people, but I'm not somebody, it's just, regardless of how good I think they are, and I have so much respect for them, I like them. Like I wasn't thinking about Samson or Rafael going into the show, There's 2 other guys that beat me, an Iranian guy and a guy from Germany. But, I wasn't like, it doesn't matter to me. I could do a show. Hadi Chupan, I did a show and Hadi Chupan showed up and destroyed everybody. Like a name like that could pop up. I don't care. You know what I mean? So I don't know who's doing Toronto. Like, I don't think there's any big names or anything, but even if there was, I don't care. Like bodybuilding, everything I do, it's about me. I'm training for myself. I do this because I enjoy it. Yeah.
Excellent, man. So we'll start heading towards the finish line here. I want to ask you, because I do want to talk about Dorian a little bit. I want to talk about Team HD and Peer and all of that. But what's the ultimate goal for you, Quentin, as an IFBB Pro bodybuilder?
Honestly, it's not something that I think about too much. I'm a very live in the moment kind of person, like right now I want to qualify for the Olympia. I need that qualification. So it's all about, right now, all I care about is qualifying. And then the next step is just having a good Olympia showing. In terms of like, I think the most common answer when you ask somebody that's an up and comer and they're young and they got potential is, I want to be the next Mr. Olympia. I mean, the idea of it is awesome, however, I'm also I'm very realistic in terms of like where I'm at. Like, so let's say I haven't won a show yet. Do I have the right to say I'm going to be the next Mr. Olympia? Although I believe I can win a show. Like I really believe I can win shows, and I will. So I don't know. I'm just somebody, okay, like right foot, left foot, I don't get too ahead of myself. I don't put too much pressure on myself. I enjoy bodybuilding, but another thing about me is that bodybuilding isn't everything to me. I'm not willing to, do certain things that other people might do to get faster results. I'm not going to do that. There's a lot of different, but ultimately, yeah, like the idea of being the best in the world is incredible. But for me, what's most important is continuing to enjoy the process and continuing to enjoy my life as I do this, because I think a lot of people, they lose themselves in the process of bodybuilding or whatever sport they're obsessed with. So, it's all about enjoyment for me. And yeah,
Well, man,
that I feel like I do my best work when I'm happy, and I'm just always happy. So
I respect that a lot. So one thing I want to ask you that you said a little bit earlier in regards to your 2020 showing at the New York Pro in Orlando was, after that, you feel like a lot of people were criticizing you, people, kind of were leaving you out of the up and comer conversation. How do you, obviously being a bodybuilder, there's going to be criticism. You're standing on stage for people to judge you. But we're all human beings, right? And I don't care how hardcore somebody is, like, when people are bagging on us, like that can get to us. How do you deal with the negativity, the criticism? And when you feel like you are starting to allow that stuff to get to you, Quentin, how do you kind of bounce right back and stay focused?
well, if somebody wants to come on my page and say some dumb shit, I'll just block them, right? But I try not to look at too much like YouTube comments and stuff. But at the end of the day, like everybody's entitled to their opinion, and I try to think of things objectively. Even I try to look at the good comments the same way I look at the bad ones. Like, let's say I got back from the show, everyone's like, "Oh my goodness, congrats on your placing, and you look incredible. Thank you, thank you, thank you." But like, if I looked horrible, what would they say? They probably wouldn't say anything, but they might like try and consolidate me, or you know, the same way someone could say you look great, someone could say your back sucks, or they could say this or that. So it's like, I feel like me looking great as a bodybuilder, what does that do for me as a human? Me, Quinton, like, what does that do? Like, should that actually empower me? It's about my appearance. You know what I mean? Like, how important is my appearance? I mean, I appreciate it. So the same way that these people can compliment me, these insults, it's like, it's about something that really and truly, like when you really look at the depth of, well, for me, the depth of what I believe life is, it's something that doesn't really matter. So when I think about it like that, I'm like, all right, I guess my back sucks. I guess I'm fat, like, whatever, sure.
Right.
But I definitely, you just got to roll with the punches. You just got to roll with the punches. And I've also been through things that are way more serious than being criticized. So, this is like a nice break from that.
Yeah. So I'm very curious because I feel that you are a very thoughtful individual, and it's like you said, like bodybuilding isn't everything for you. So like I feel like whether you're a bodybuilder or some other type of an athlete, it's really easy for us to get caught up in that identity, right? Like
Yes.
I'm a bodybuilder, I'm a football player, I'm a basketball player. Like that's who we are. It's like, we eat, sleep, and breathe it, and that's our identity. But I feel like, because you said there's more to bodybuilding to you than just bodybuilding. So like, who are you, Quentin? Like when you think about yourself as a human being, who are you?
I would say that I'm an individual that's just trying to be better every day. I want to say I'm compassionate. I'm, quite humorous. You know, I, and I'm very supportive. I'm very loving, very supportive to the people around me. I'm imperfect. I'm imperfect. I'm not perfect, but I try to be the best person that I could be, and I feel like at the end of the day, like I know people that, let's say they're at a certain age and they can't put on crazy amounts of muscle, or they're losing muscle, and you see them like they're insecure, their confidence is going down. To me, I'm like, are you stupid? Like who, like it's I don't know, it's physiological. Like, that when you get to a certain age, it's gonna happen. When you get to a certain age, years or decades of gear usage is just going to compound and it's going to be more detrimental to your health. So for me, I don't understand how people can't be a bit more like, I don't know, I guess a bit more like me, but I don't know. I definitely take pride in the fact that I believe that, okay, let's go with this. Like my goal in life, and this has always been my goal in life, was to be a father, was to have a family. Family is so important to me. Especially this prep. I've been calling my mom every day. I call or text my dad pretty much, every couple of days. I talk to my brothers pretty often. Like, family is everything. And if there's one thing from my parents that I've been inspired by so many things that they've done, but I want to be like them. I want to be better than them. And I think I will, because obviously, a new generation, I know more now than what they do. I could learn from the errors that I thought they made or whatever. But, my goal in life is to be a family man, to be a father. So, when I think about that, like, I don't want to do anything, or there's nothing that's more important than that to me, than having like a very close and loving family. So yeah, like muscle, like what's that got to do with having kids?
Beautiful, man. So I want to kind of start finishing up with this. So Team HD, the crew there. I just had Cody, Amy on the podcast. I think it was yesterday or 2 days ago. Antoine has been gracious enough to come on the podcast and share, his story of recovery and struggles. And I had a lot of the guys that train at Piron. Big Mike's been on the podcast. So it's just what an environment, man. So from your perspective, Quentin, what's it like to be a part of Team HD? Not necessarily the supplements, we've already talked about that, but just being a part of that team, being able to train at Pure, and just having that family surrounding you.
Honestly, when I started working with Dorian, I moved to the city that they moved in maybe 6-7 months later, and began my journey. And we started training every day together, me and the guys. And it's just like, I couldn't have come into a more great situation, because as soon as I came in, that's when the talks of the gym started, and they built the gym. Like, I feel like I came in at like the perfect time. Like, it was just like nothing could be, like, everything's perfect. And as much as I felt like it was perfect 2 years ago, it just keeps getting better every couple of months, because, Dorian's a perfectionist. Him and Noah are always working on things, adding things, making the gym better. We got such a good community. A lot of these guys have such good hearts. I have so much love for Cody. Cody's an incredible person, man. And in ways, Cody, there's just something about him, man, that I've always respected, and he inspires me. He's always been very supportive, sort of it's all like, because they're all a bit older than me, so it's like he's almost like an older brother to me. Dorian's definitely like an older brother / mentor, Antoine as well. So I was very lucky, you know what I mean? I feel like a lot of times when you have value, not just in bodybuilding, but in anything in life, people try and take advantage of you, try and pull from you. But this circle of people, they don't do that. It's cool because, and I was 23 when I came around, I think. I learned so much. The thing is, if you actually do your best for people and try and bring the best out of people, you get the best out of them. So in return, like, them being at their best might help you in a certain way, but you're not doing it because you want them to help you. It's not, so you're not doing it with a selfish mindset. But the thing is, when you're actually just giving and you're trying to do, and you're doing your best for people, I feel like the universe just pays it forward. And that's what I learned about being around this crew. Like, everybody is about everybody, everybody's supportive. And, I'm grateful for them all. Mike is an incredible trainer. He helped me a lot. And I'm going to use a lot of the tools that he has taught me and puts out on the YouTube, on the Instagram. I'm going to keep using those tools in my workouts, even the days I don't train with him. So yeah, we got a really good crew.
What's outside of bodybuilding, what's something that you've gleaned from Dorian in terms of just maybe some advice he's given you, or just observing his life, what have you gleaned from him?
Just being a good person. He's an incredible person. You know, of course, he's very good business-wise. He's a smart guy. You know, he's successful. But the most important thing is just he's a very forgiving individual. He's very passionate. He's always willing to help. He always wants to help people, you know, and again, I feel like, you know, God blesses him because he has a genuine, it's genuine, him wanting to help people, right? Whereas a lot of people, hey, let me do this, but they actually want something in return, right? So I feel like, you know, he's just he's also the same way I said that my parents are pure, like Dorian is like pure, like this guy is such a good person. So that inspires me, you know, that it inspires me because, you know, I feel imperfect. Like if somebody rubs me the wrong way, I could hold a grudge a little bit. And I know it's not a huge deal, or like if somebody really gets on my nerve, I could snap, get a little mouthy. You know, so it's like these are things and I don't tell people off. Like last time I probably cussed at somebody, maybe like once this year. But you know, it's just in general, the fact that I have the propensity to do it, like, you know, I just feel like some people, it doesn't even occur to them, you know, so definitely the goodness of him as an individual is just an inspiration of a man.
Cool. So this is a couple fun questions and then we'll be done here, Quentin. So this is a question that I asked Cody. Okay. So I asked him and I'm asking you the same question, but before you answer, I've got to tell you what his answer was. So I asked him, who is the freakiest bodybuilder that you've seen in pure muscle, the gym? Okay. That can be somebody that trains there on a regular basis, or it can be somebody that's just kind of come through the doors. Cody's answer was you. Okay. Yeah. So you can't say yourself. All right. So who's the freakiest bodybuilder, male, female, that you've seen training at Pure?
Well, thank you, Cody, by the way. I think it's Carlos Thomas Jr. That guy's freak.
Absolutely, man. Who's number two? Who's another freak that you just love seeing in the gym or enjoyed watching train there?
I don't know. I'm like the way that Carlos is freaky. I don't know. I can't really compare. It's hard for me to like. There's a lot of really impressive looking people. Like I don't know, maybe Regan, but I don't know. Like I guess when you live with somebody, I don't know. Well, Cody sees me all the time, so I don't know. But I think definitely Carlos is just like, it's just like what the fuck. Like I don't have that what the fuck reaction to a lot of people, you know. So I think Carlos was like, holy fuck. Like I've been following Regan. I've been a fan of him before we were friends. So maybe he doesn't look as crazy to me because I've been seeing his physique and been seeing the progress. But he is a very, very, very impressive. So I'd say maybe Regan.
Cool, man. All right. And then the last fun question here. Best Canadian bodybuilder of all time?
Based on, I don't know, like Paul Dillette probably, but who's gonna be the best Canadian bodybuilder? It's probably me, to be honest, but
I like it, man. I like it. Cool. Well, Quentin, I just want to say thank you very much for coming on the podcast, man. I'm always humble when you guys, especially when you're 1 week out, man, take the time to come on the podcast and share your story and chop it up with me. It's greatly appreciated. If you have any final thoughts or any final words that you want to leave with myself and the listeners, go ahead at this time and share that with us. And then where can people find you and connect with you on social media?
So I'd like to say we were trying to set this up a while back, but at that point in my prep, I was a corpse. And, you know, the idea of talking, I'm like, you know, let me just focus on the prep. So, you know, again, sorry about that, but I'm glad we were able to get it done. You know, had a good time here. It also helps kill time between now and my next meal. So, you know, very good. You can find me on Instagram, Quint Beastwood, YouTube, Quint Beastwood, and on Facebook, Quinton Eriya.
Very cool, man. All right, Q, I appreciate it, my man. And I'm looking forward to continuing to follow along on Instagram, and excited to see what happens in Toronto in a week. Okay.
Thanks, man. Listen, we'll get another one in post victory.
That sounds good, man. And you have a little bit more energy, have some food in you. That would be cool. So
Yeah,
all of
I'll bring
you,
the food on the podcast.
what's that?
I'll bring the food on the podcast.
There we go, dude. You'd be more than welcome to do that. So all of you who are listening, once again, to Behind the Muscle podcast, and those of you who are tuning in through YouTube, I want to say thank you, because it's because of you that the podcast exists. If it wasn't for you listening, if it wasn't for you tuning in, watching through YouTube, and, subscribing to the YouTube channel, following on Instagram, again, the podcast wouldn't exist. So 3 things I would just ask of all of you. If you haven't done so already, make sure you hit that subscribe button on YouTube. That's important, because I release all of these episodes first on YouTube, and then I shoot them out to the rest of the podcast platforms. And then also, if you haven't done so at this point, make sure you hit that like button on YouTube, and then go down in the comment section and please leave a comment. Share your favorite part of the conversation today with Quentin, and or something that you gleaned in terms of what he talked to us about today. And then the final thing, the final favor I'd ask of all of you, take this episode specifically and please share it on your Instagram stories. Make sure you tag Quentin, tag Behind the Muscle, so that we know you listened to this episode specifically and you found great value in this episode. And then finally, I will leave you all with this. Remember, behind the muscle, there's always a story. We'll catch you guys later.